From closet recordings to a life draped in designer gold, David's world feels less like music and more like a billionaire's playground. From Teslas to extravagant tech toys, let's step inside David's empire of wealth and extravagance that makes even Hollywood's elite pause. The luxe life built on streaming billions. In the glittering constellation of modern music success stories, few shine quite as unexpectedly or as lavishly as that of David Anthony Burke, better known to the world as David. This isn't just another rags to riches tale. Welcome to the extraordinary material universe of David, where lo-fi indie rock meets high-end living and where every stream translates not just into dollars, but into a lifestyle that redefines what success looks like for Gen Z. But before we dive into the Teslas, the designer collaborations, and the technology that fills his daily life, we need to understand the empire that makes it all possible. Because David's total streams on Spotify have reached an astounding 5.62 billion plays as of September 30th, 2025, a number so vast it becomes the foundation for a lifestyle most 20-year-olds can barely imagine. Let's talk about what those billions actually mean when they hit your bank account. Those 5.62 billion streams translate to estimated gross royalties somewhere between 16.9 million and 28.1 million. And while the music industry takes its substantial cut, labels, managers, distributors all reaching in with eager hands, we're still talking about the kind of wealth that transforms every aspect of daily existence. David signed his record deal with Interscope at just 17 years old, securing a $3 million to $6 million advance that immediately catapulted him from middle-class Houston teenager to someone who could afford almost anything his heart desired. The crown jewel in David's streaming empire, his haunting track, Romantic Homicide, which has accumulated over 1.7 billion streams on Spotify alone, generating somewhere between $5.1 million and $8.5 million in gross royalties from a single song. That's one track, one piece of music created on a smartphone in a closet that has purchased freedoms and luxuries most people work their entire lives to attain. So what does a 20-year-old do with this kind of money? Let's start with transportation, because nothing says I've made it quite like what you drive: Tesla ownership. Among young, successful artists has become almost cliche, the Model S and Model X representing that perfect intersection of environmental consciousness, technological sophistication, and status signaling that appeals to Gen Z wealth. These aren't just cars. They're statements about values, about being plugged into the future, about having arrived at a place where six-figure vehicles are reasonable transportation choices. The base Model S starts at $75,000, but with the performance upgrades and customizations that someone like David would inevitably want, we're easily looking at $100 million to $130 million of gleaming electric luxury. But transportation extends beyond four wheels. For an artist with 40 million monthly listeners globally, travel becomes constant and first class becomes standard. When you're flying between Los Angeles, New York, and international destinations for performances, meetings, and collaborations, those $5,000 to $15,000 first class tickets add up quickly. But they also represent a non-negotiable separation from the cramped discomfort of economy class. Private jet charters, while not yet a daily occurrence for someone at David's current level, become increasingly accessible options for important trips, $10,000 to $50,000 per flight, depending on distance and aircraft, transforming transcontinental travel from ordeal into luxury. Then there's fashion, that most visible marker of wealth and taste. David's style embodies what industry insiders call elevated street, that carefully curated aesthetic that looks effortlessly thrown together, but actually represents thousands of dollars of designer pieces. His collaboration with Crocs and Hollister in September 2025 wasn't just a business deal. It was a natural extension of his personal aesthetic. The campaign featured him in coordinated outfits, pairing Hollister's fleece sets with custom Crocs clogs, pieces that might retail for $80 $200, but that David likely has in every colorway, never paying retail, always getting the newest drops before they hit stores. Look deeper into his wardrobe though, and you'll find the real investments. Vintage band tees that can cost $500 to $2,000 each when sourced from the right dealers. Limited edition sneakers, Travis Scott Jordans, Off-White Dunks, Rare Yeezys, that retail for $200 to $400 but resell for $1,000 $5,000. Pairs that David can now acquire without hesitation, building collections that appreciate in value while being worn. Designer hoodies from brands like Fear of God, Gallery Dept, and Chrome Hearts that carry price tags of $80 $03000, transforming the humble sweatshirt into a luxury statement. Custom jewelry, chains, rings, perhaps a watch, that represent $10,000 $50,000 in precious metals and stones. tones, subtle enough to maintain his lo-fi aesthetic, but valuable enough to signal that he's playing in a different financial league now. His own merchandise line tells the story of someone who understands both aesthetics and business. The withered hoodie at $75 to $80, the black kawaii hoodie at $80. These aren't just revenue generators, they're extensions of his personal style philosophy. The sold-out status of key pieces creates artificial scarcity that drives demand, but it also reflects genuine design sensibility. When David wears his own merchandise, he's not just promoting a product, he's wearing pieces that could hold their own against designer alternatives costing 5 times as much. Technology represents another dimension of his material world, and here the investments become both practical and aspirational. Start with the obvious. The latest iPhone Pro Max, $1,200, $1,600, probably upgraded annually because staying current isn't optional when your entire career depends on digital platforms. But then expand outward. Professional recording equipment that transforms any space into a studio. Microphones, audio interfaces, monitors that collectively cost $5,000, $20,000. The laptop isn't just any MacBook, it's a maxed out MacBook Pro at $4,000 to $6,000, with processing power and storage that ensures nothing ever lags, nothing ever fails at a crucial moment. Gaming setups that rival professional esports players. Remember, David started creating music for Fortnite montages, with custom PCs costing $3,000 to $8,000, curved monitors at $80,000 each, mechanical keyboards and precision mice that together add another $500, $1,000. Smart home technology has likely transformed wherever he lives, whether that's Los Angeles, Houston, or somewhere between. Automated lighting systems from Philips Hue or Leafex, $2,000, $5,000 for a full home setup. Premium sound systems from Sonos or Bang & Olufsen, easily $5,000, $20,000 depending on how many rooms and how obsessive the audio quality pursuit becomes. Security systems with cameras and monitoring that cost $3,000, $10,000 to install and hundreds monthly to maintain. These aren't luxuries when you're young, successful, and increasingly visible. They're necessities that happen to cost what normal people spend on cars. Real estate tells its own story, though exact details of David's living situation remain private, but we can extrapolate from comparable artists at similar career stages. Los Angeles real estate for someone wanting to be close to the industry action typically means either luxury apartments in buildings like the Century or the W residences, $5,000 to $15,000 monthly for a 2-bedroom with the right amenities and address, or starter homes in neighborhoods like Silver Lake or Echo Park, $800,000 to $2 million purchase prices, or $4,000 to $10,000 monthly if renting. Then there are the experiences, those moments that money can buy, and that create the memories and connections that sustain careers and souls alike. Festival appearances at Coachella and Lollapalooza aren't just performance opportunities, they're all-access passes to exclusive parties, backstage areas where champagne flows at $500 to $2,000 per bottle, VIP lounges where the next collaboration or business deal might casually emerge from conversation. His collaboration with Epic Games on Locked and Loaded, official Fortnite anthem, brought not just income but access to the Fortnite Global Championship in Lyon, France, to exclusive gaming events, to experiences that blur the line between work and play in ways that make both more enjoyable. These aren't just business trips, they're all expenses-paid adventures to international destinations, 5-star hotels at $500 to $1,500 nightly, experiences that create stories and connections worth far more than their price tags. But here's where the story takes its darkest turn, where we must acknowledge that all this luxury exists against a backdrop of tragedy and controversy. In late September 2025, David's streams experienced an unprecedented surge, more than doubling to 30.3 million US on-demand streams over just 5 days, a 120% increase that coincided with the discovery of a body in a Tesla registered to him. The uncomfortable mathematics of tragedy-driven attention. Romantic Homicide surged 102 spots on Spotify's global chart, with daily streams reaching 2.157 million. His biggest streaming day ever came on September 21st, 2025, with 12.1 million plays. This surge potentially added $5 to $10 million annually to his revenues if sustained, but at what cost? Both Crocs and Hollister removed his images from their campaigns, issuing statements about the developing story. Brand partnerships worth potentially $50,000, $150,000 each evaporated overnight. The Tesla that represented success became something darker in public consciousness. The luxury lifestyle suddenly carried different connotations, different questions about how wealth and tragedy intersect in ways that make headlines. It's worth emphasizing that David has not been charged with any crime, and the investigation's outcome remains uncertain. Yet the infrastructure remains. Monthly listeners still hover around 39–40 million. The streaming catalog continues generating revenue around the clock. Apple Music, with its higher per-stream payouts of 0.6 cents and 1 cent, still contributes an estimated $15 to $35 million in career gross revenue. YouTube's 1.14 billion views translate to $474,000, 582,000 monthly. Combined across all platforms, career gross revenue lands somewhere between $43.9 million and $94.1 million. The global reach of his music tells its own story of international luxury potential. Top listener countries include Indonesia with 966,587 monthly listeners, the Philippines with 426,318, the United States with 406,583, the United Kingdom with 505,545, and Malaysia with 376,302, each market representing not just streams but potential brand deals, concert appearances, merchandise sales, and opportunities to experience different cultures and luxuries around the world. His current net worth estimates hover around $2 to $3 million, a figure that accounts for assets, investments, and liquid wealth after expenses. For context, that's enough to generate $120,000 annually in passive investment income alone at conservative 4% returns, before any music revenues, before any new deals, before any touring or merchandise sales. It's enough to never worry about rent, to upgrade technology on whim, to indulge almost any reasonable desire without checking bank balances first. This is the billionaire life, or at least the multimillionaire life of David, where streaming success translates not just into numbers on spreadsheets, but into tangible, visible, experiential wealth that transforms every aspect of existence. The designer clothes, the premium technology, the luxury transportation, the exclusive experiences, these aren't just perks of success. They're the visible manifestation of billions of streams, the material evidence that bedroom recordings can indeed change lives in the most fundamental ways. The live performance empire that wasn't. If streaming represents the foundation of David's financial empire, touring and live performances were meant to be the skyscraper built atop it. The multiplier effect that could transform millions into tens of millions, that could cement his status not just as a recording artist, but as a complete entertainment phenomenon. The mathematics of touring, after all, are seductive. Artists can generate 3–10x more income from tours than from equivalent streaming efforts, turning passive listeners into paying attendees, converting digital fans into physical merchandise customers, and creating experiences that command premium prices. For an artist of David's caliber and reach, a successful tour could potentially net between $1 million and $3 million per leg. Life-changing money even by music industry standards. The plan was ambitious and well-architected. David's Withered World Tour was announced for 2025 to promote his debut album, featuring an impressive international scope with legs spanning the United States, Europe, and Australia. The venue selection revealed calculated growth, mid-sized locations like Portland's Crystal Ballroom with its approximately 1,500 capacity, and Chicago's Salt Shed accommodating around 3,500 attendees. Let's break down the potential economics of such a tour, shall we? Picture a typical show with an average venue capacity of 2,000 to 2,500, operating at approximately 80% capacity, a conservative estimate that accounts for the reality that not every show sells out completely. Ticket prices for David's demographic typically range from $40 to $60 for general admission, with dynamic pricing pushing premium spots toward $100 or more. For a 20-show tour, a reasonable leg by industry standards, we're looking at gross ticket revenue between $1,280,000 and $1.92 million before any expenses or revenue sharing. Then there's the VIP experience economy, a relatively recent innovation that has transformed touring economics. VIP packages for artists like David typically carry premiums of $100 to $250 over standard ticket prices, offering fans early entry, meet and greet opportunities, exclusive merchandise, and lounge access. The brilliance of VIP packages lies in their margins. While standard tickets split revenue among multiple parties, VIP experiences often allow artists to retain 70 to 90% of the premium, as venues and promoters view them as artist-driven add-ons rather than core ticket sales. Assuming between 10 to 20% of attendees opt for VIP experiences, a reasonable estimate based on similar Gen Z-focused artists, we're talking about $200 200 to 400 VIP purchases per show at an average $150 premium. Over a 20-show tour, this adds $60 to $1.2 million in gross VIP revenue, with artist net proceeds potentially reaching $400,000 to $800,000. These numbers aren't trivial. VIP revenue alone could match or exceed the net proceeds from standard ticket sales, essentially doubling the tour's profitability. And then there's merchandise, that unglamorous but remarkably lucrative pillar of touring income. Picture the scene: concert goers, energized by the performance, buzzing with endorphins and emotional connection, queue at merchandise tables to purchase tangible tokens of the experience. T-shirts priced at $30 to $40, hoodies at $50 to $70, posters at $20, and specialty items that might include everything from signed albums to tour-exclusive collectibles. Industry data suggests per attendee merchandise spending averages $10 to $30, with 30 to 50% of concert goers making a purchase. The mathematics become compelling quickly. For 32,000 total attendees across a 20-show tour, 1,600 average per show, merchandise revenue could range from $320,000 to $960,000 gross. Venues typically take 15 to 25% of merchandise sales as their cut, but even after this deduction and accounting for production costs, artists can retain margins of 50 to 70%. This translates to net merchandise income of $200,000 to $60,000, not insignificant, and notably achieved with minimal ongoing effort once designs are created and inventory produced. Tour-exclusive merchandise can boost these figures by 20 to 30% as fans rush to acquire items that won't be available after the tour concludes. Aggregating these streams, ticket sales, VIP packages, and merchandise, a fully realized 20-show tour for David could have generated gross revenue between $2.2 million and $4.08 million, with artist net proceeds landing somewhere between $1.1 million and $2.4 million. These aren't theoretical numbers pulled from thin air. They're based on documented averages for artists with similar audience sizes and venue selections. Add in festival appearances that can pay $50,000 to $100 million per performance, and you begin to see how touring could have contributed 30 to 50% to David's overall net worth in a single year. The multiplier effect of touring extends beyond direct revenues too. Tours typically drive 20 to 50% increases in streaming numbers as concert attendees return to streaming platforms to relive the experience, explore deep cuts they heard live, and share discoveries with friends. Social media posts from venues, fan-generated content from shows, and local media coverage in tour cities all contribute to sustained visibility that keeps an artist's profile elevated between album cycles. Merchandise purchased at shows serves as walking advertisements as fans wear David hoodies and t-shirts in their daily lives, sparking conversations and potentially converting casual observers into new listeners. This is where we must confront the elephant in the room, the tragedy that transformed potential into hypothetical, that converted projections into might-have-beens. In September 2025, amid the police investigation we discussed earlier, David's US and European tour legs were cancelled. Major outlets including CNN, Variety, and Billboard cited the ongoing probe as the primary reason, with refunds issued through Ticketmaster typically processed within 30 days of cancellation notices. The Australian dates remained uncertain as of October 1st, 2025, their fate hanging in the limbo of legal proceedings and public relations considerations. The financial impact of these cancellations cannot be overstated. Previous tours in 2024 had included 20 shows with similar venues, generating estimated gross revenues of $500,000 to $1 million, suggesting that David's touring operation had been building momentum and proving its commercial viability. The 2025 Withered World Tour was positioned to be significantly larger in scope and ambition, potentially representing a breakthrough moment in his live performance career. Its cancellation likely cost David between $1 million and $2 million in foregone revenue, money that cannot be easily recaptured, as momentum and timing in the music industry are as crucial as talent itself. Some social media speculation suggested low ticket sales might have contributed to the cancellation, but major outlets emphasized the investigation's role as the primary driver, noting that prior shows had demonstrated strong sellout potential. The distinction matters because it speaks to whether we're discussing a voluntary business decision or an external constraint imposed by circumstances. The evidence suggests the latter, that David's touring potential remains robust but has been temporarily derailed by events beyond his direct control. To understand the full significance of what was lost, we must compare touring economics to streaming revenues. To earn $1 million from Spotify streaming requires approximately 250 million plays, an impressive number that might take months or years to accumulate even for successful artists. In contrast, that same $1 million could be earned through selling just one 115 merchandise items per show over a 20-show tour, assuming healthy margins. The directness of touring revenue, the immediacy of payment, and the higher profit margins make it extraordinarily appealing despite the significant upfront costs and logistical complexity. Industry data confirms that for emerging and mid-tier artists like David, tours can yield $500,000 to $5 million annually versus $100 million to $1 million from streaming, a 2-5x multiplier effect that can fundamentally transform an artist's financial trajectory, even accounting for the reality that only 57% of independent tours prove profitable, a sobering statistic that reminds us touring isn't a guaranteed moneymaker. Successful tours can generate life-changing sums. For now, David's touring story remains one of tantalizing potential rather than realized achievement, of what if rather than what is. The mathematics suggest he could have been extraordinarily successful on the road, multiplying his streaming wealth several times over. But in the unpredictable intersection of art, commerce, and human tragedy, even the best laid plans can crumble, leaving us to calculate the value of dreams deferred. From closet to culture, the billionaire mindset. Let's get one thing straight from the start. David isn't a billionaire. Not on paper, not in the traditional sense, not when auditors examine bank statements and tally assets according to Forbes methodology. His current net worth sits somewhere between $2 to $3 million, a fortune by any reasonable standard, life-changing money that 99% of 20-year-olds could never imagine possessing, but not billionaire territory. Not even close to the 9-figure club, let alone 10. Yet here's the fascinating paradox that defines modern celebrity in the streaming era. David lives, operates, and commands influence, as if those extra zeros were already attached to his net worth. His wealth isn't just counted in dollars, it's measured in cultural capital, in the ability to move markets with a single post, in living a lifestyle that billionaires would recognize as their own, just scaled to fit a 20-year-old's sensibilities. The origin story reads like a Gen Z fever dream. David Anthony Burke was born in 2005 in Houston, Texas, a city more famous for strip malls and humidity than for launching lo-fi indie rock careers. His childhood was aggressively normal, middle-class American in all the unremarkable ways that make later success feel even more improbable. There were no trust funds waiting in the wings, no family connections to the music industry, no safety nets beyond the standard suburban American variety. What there was, crucially, was a gaming obsession, specifically Fortnite, and a practical problem that would accidentally solve itself into a career. Picture teenage David in 2021, wanting to create gaming montage videos like countless other kids his age, but hitting the universal frustration of copyright claims whenever he used popular music. The solution in retrospect seems obvious: create his own music. But at the time, for a kid with no formal training, no expensive equipment, no studio access, it was an audacious leap. He downloaded BandLab, a free mobile music creation app, turned his bedroom closet into a makeshift vocal booth, not for aesthetic reasons, but because the clothes absorbed echo, and started making tracks on his smartphone. The early tracks were utilitarian, designed for gaming videos rather than artistry. But something unexpected happened in that creative process. David discovered he had a voice, both literally and figuratively. The lo-fi production quality wasn't a limitation to overcome. It was an aesthetic that resonated with a generation raised on bedroom pop, SoundCloud rap, and the authenticity of imperfection. The emotional vulnerability in his lyrics, dealing with love, loss, heartbreak, and teenage angst, connected in ways that polished pop productions never could. This wasn't manufactured relatability. This was genuine emotional expression from someone still figuring out who he was, exactly like his audience. Then came the moment that changed everything. In 2022, David uploaded Romantic Homicide to TikTok, a track that captured teenage heartbreak with devastating simplicity. The algorithm smiled upon him. The song went viral in the truest sense, not just popular, but culturally ubiquitous, generating over 225,500 TikTok creations as users created edits, challenges, emotional montages, and covers. Each creation functioned as free advertising, exponentially expanding reach in ways traditional marketing couldn't replicate with unlimited budgets. But here's where David's story diverges from typical TikTok viral moments that flame out as quickly as they ignite. The virality translated to streaming platforms, 1.7 billion Spotify plays and counting for Romantic Homicide alone, creating sustainable revenue rather than fleeting fame. Here With Me followed with 1.3 billion streams, establishing him as an artist with depth rather than a one-hit wonder. The trajectory was so remarkable that Interscope Records came calling with a deal reportedly worth $3 to $6 million in advances, money that 17 19-year-old David Burke couldn't have imagined in his wildest gaming session daydreams. This is where the billionaire lifestyle begins, not with the net worth, but with the mindset shift that occurs when money stops being a limiting factor in decision-making. When David signed that contract, becoming a millionaire while still a minor, he didn't just gain financial resources, he gained access. Access to rooms where deals are made, to people who move culture, to experiences that money purchases and connections amplify. He could suddenly afford the same designer streetwear as established artists, the same technology, the same travel, the same freedom to focus entirely on creativity without worrying about day, jobs or budgets. The billionaire comparison isn't about literal wealth, it's about operational freedom. Actual billionaires don't check price tags, they don't budget for purchases, they don't calculate whether they can afford something, they decide whether they want it. David, with his millions in advances and streaming revenues generating hundreds of thousands monthly, operates with that same freedom at his scale. The $80 hoodie, the $1,200 iPhone, the $5,000 first-class ticket. These aren't financial decisions requiring deliberation. They're choices made based on desire rather than affordability, which is the psychological space that billionaires inhabit permanently and that David has entered years before most people achieve financial security. Consider the mathematics of influence. 3.8 million TikTok followers who see his posts, engage with his content, adopt his aesthetic preferences and purchase products he endorses. 2.3 million YouTube subscribers generating millions of views monthly, millions more across Instagram and other platforms. 40 million monthly Spotify listeners who spend hours each month with his voice in their ears, forming parasocial connections that feel personal even when shared with millions. This attention isn't just vanity metrics, it's convertible currency. When David posts about a product, brands pay $10,000 for that exposure because they understand the value of authentic endorsement to engaged audiences. When he wears a particular style, fast fashion brands rush to create knockoffs. Streetwear resellers see demand spikes, trends shift in response. That's influence that money can't directly buy. It must be earned through cultural relevance, through connecting with audiences in ways that feel genuine rather than transactional. The Crocs and Hollister collaboration, before its controversial ending, perfectly illustrated this dynamic. Brands didn't just want David as a model. They wanted access to his audience, his aesthetic, his ability to make $80 Sherpa-lined clogs feel essential to Gen Z consumers. The campaign's surrealist dreamscape setting wasn't about the products themselves, but about selling a lifestyle, a vibe, a cultural moment that David embodied. That's billionaire-level market-moving capability, the ability to shift consumer behavior through association. His Fortnite partnership demonstrates the same principle in the gaming world. Locked and Loaded as the official Fortnite anthem wasn't just a commissioned track, it was a cultural coronation, recognition that David had transcended being merely a musician to become a cultural figure whose music could represent an entire gaming phenomenon. The track's inclusion in the Fortnite Global Championship meant millions of gamers associating his sound with competition, achievement, and cultural participation. That's influence that compounds, each exposure creating potential new fans, new streams, new opportunities. The lifestyle dimension of billionaire living manifests not in yachts and private islands, but in age-appropriate equivalent experiences. David doesn't need a yacht when he can access any experience, any venue, any event that matters to someone 20 years old. Festival appearances at Coachella and Lollapalooza aren't just performances. They're all-access passes to the most exclusive parties, to backstage areas where industry power brokers congregate, to experiences that most festival-goers pay thousands to glimpse from a distance. When he travels, it's not in cramped economy seats, but in first-class comfort, often with tours or label business covering costs that still feel like luxury, even when technically work-related. The global reach of his influence creates a lifestyle of constant opportunity and access. Top listener countries spanning Indonesia, the Philippines, the United States, the UK, and Malaysia mean international recognition, the ability to travel anywhere and be celebrated, to experience cultures not as a tourist but as an honored guest. That's a form of wealth that transcends currency exchange rates, the freedom to be welcomed globally, to have your art appreciated across linguistic and cultural barriers, to live as a citizen of the digital world where influence matters more than passport nationality. The culture he commands is perhaps the most valuable asset of all, and the one that most closely approximates billionaire-level power. David didn't just find success, he helped define what success looks like for his generation. The lo-fi aesthetic, the bedroom production values, the emotional vulnerability, the gaming-to-music pipeline, these weren't just his personal journey, but a roadmap that countless others now attempt to follow. When Romantic Homicide spent years on playlists and re-peaked in 2025, it demonstrated staying power that most viral hits never achieve, cultural relevance that compounds, rather than diminishes. The social media empire he's built operates as a 24/7 cultural production machine. TikTok generates $13,000, $21,440 monthly in direct payments. But its real value lies in viral amplification. Each post potentially reaching millions, each trend potentially defining what's cool for Gen Z audiences. Instagram's $50,960, $69,800 monthly comes from sponsored content and platform bonuses. But the lifestyle documentation creates aspirational content that keeps followers engaged, dreaming, emulating. YouTube's $474,369.581,655 monthly provides the most substantial direct social media income. But even more valuable is the permanent archive of content that continues generating revenue and influence years after upload. The September 2025 controversy paradoxically demonstrated the strength of this influence infrastructure. When streams doubled to 30.3 million weekly amid negative publicity, when followers gained 22,000 daily despite brand partnerships evaporating, it revealed that cultural influence operates by different rules than traditional business. Attention, whether positive or negative, translates to engagement, to streams, to revenue in ways that would be unthinkable in conventional industries. Does he live like a billionaire? In every way that matters to a 20-year-old in 2025, yes. He enjoys material comforts, experiences luxury, commands influence, moves culture, and operates without financial constraints on his choices. The specific number in his bank account matters less than the lifestyle it enables, the doors it opens, the freedom it provides. His $2 to $3 million net worth is merely the foundation. The real wealth lives in streaming catalogs that generate revenue perpetually, in influence that compounds daily, in cultural relevance that transforms ordinary moments into opportunities. And with that, we've come to the end of this deep dive. For more juicy content like this, smash that subscribe button, hit the bell for notifications, and check out the cards showing on your screen for more videos. Don't forget to comment your thoughts below.